Hey, this is Adam Torres, and I'm here to tell you that it has never been easier to start your very own podcast. At Mission Matters, our goal is to amplify stories that matter. That means we want to help you start your podcast because your story matters. We can do this in 3 different ways. 1, join our podcast school and take a free or paid course. 2, visit our resources page where we've already figured out what you need, such as where to host your podcast. Or 3, heck, we can even do everything for you through our podcast agency, including editing for cheaper than you can do in-house. Oh, and no contract, service is month to month. Get started by heading over to missionmatters.com and click on Start a Podcast. All right, now let's get into the show. Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Mission Matters Business Podcast, your source for all things business. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres to keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, missionmatters.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, today I have Payton on the line. He's managing partner and radio host over at Business Radio X. Stone, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, man.
Oh, man, excited to have you here today. I was like, man, I'm excited. Professional on the line here. I'm like, make my job easy, Stone. I'm like, and you got the name, too. Come on, Stone Payton. I'm like, Business Radio X is awesome. So quick background for the listeners who maybe haven't heard your work yet. You've interviewed thousands of the nation's top execs, entrepreneurs, business owners, authors, thought leaders. I mean, you've been in the business a long time. That being said, just to give everybody an overview, tell us a little bit more to kick it off about Radio X, please.
Yeah, I have. I've had an opportunity to interview so many folks out there doing such marvelous work. And as I'm sure you've experienced in your work, Adam, these are bright, passionate people who are just out there grinding it out every day. And there's just so many folks out there doing such marvelous work. It's an incredibly rewarding way to make a living and try to make a contribution back to the planet and the universe. My current role is managing partner with Business Radio X, so I've sort of evolved a little bit from helping clients reverse engineer media properties that help them meet hard-to-reach people and build authority and credibility and generate meaningful, compelling content that they can use in their sales and marketing effort. I've sort of evolved from that set of responsibilities to going out into the broader marketplace and trying to identify people who would be good candidates to actually run Business Radio X studios in their local community. So that's where I'm spending most of my energy now. And Adam, I'll take all the help I can get, man.
Man, that's really an exciting venture, and I love what you're doing. Really, you're taking the model that you've created, and the way that you are amplifying stories, and now you're also providing the opportunity to others. So I think it's an amazing concept and awesome for the people that do work with you. So that being said, at the end of this, I'm going to give you an opportunity to leave contact information, websites, stuff like that. But I do want the right types of individuals and/or business owners, entrepreneurs to connect. What's typically a good fit to work with Business Radio X?
So we're still getting this figured out in terms of who's a good fit for a Business Radio X studio partner, but 2 groups that we know for a fact we have absolutely validated make marvelous candidates for that particular business opportunity. One group are the people who are either in or from the training and development field. Because, and I think maybe this is true in your world too, Adam, the people who make the best host and studio partners for us, they're not like terrestrial radio personalities. They're really more, they're facilitators. And there are people who are relationship oriented, very invested in serving their community, their profession, the marketplace. So the training and consulting folks who either want to utilize our platform to help them grow their existing enterprise is one great group. So I'd love to talk to those folks. And then the other group, as it turns out, is this 50-plus-year-old either established or aspiring entrepreneur. That pool, as I'm sure you're aware, Adam, is getting larger and larger. Some of those folks are being ask politely and sometimes not so politely to please exit stage right. And they are kind of rejiggering their career plan. And those are some of the people we'd like to have conversations with about being the business radio X media platform in their local community so they can do the things for the professional services providers in that community that we've now had an opportunity to do across 10 studios, coming from 7 states now, I guess.
Man, that's awesome. I think it's a great idea, and I think it's a really interesting concept for people to get involved. And what I like is that, unlike when you're starting this thing from scratch, you have a model already that's proven. So, for example, when I started my first show, I'm like, I didn't know what I was doing. Let's claim that I know a little bit maybe about what I'm doing now, but that being said, when I started, it took me years to learn this business. If I would have known of a company like yours or an opportunity like that, I could have been years ahead of building this media platform if I would have known. But, right, you don't know, don't know. So I love what you're doing over there, Stone. And I think this is a great transition. So let's dive in a little bit further into today's topic. So high velocity selling habits. I mean, there's a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs, executives on the line right now. And they say, we all know without sales, business is not going to last. You need cash flow coming in. So where do you want to start with this topic, Stone?
Well, thank you for providing the platform to talk about this a little bit. Where this is coming from, some 20 years ago, I self-published a book on high-velocity disciplines for leaders. And so the topic was geared much more around leadership, and I had even by that time observed a handful of key disciplines that top-performing leaders really did exercise consistently, relentlessly, that gave them that slight extra edge, equipped them to build a culture that served their mission and purpose and enabled them to produce great deal more results in much less time. You don't even know this yet, Adam, because we haven't had this conversation, but if at all possible, this next book, which is going to be High Velocity Selling Habits, is going to be a collaboration with you, or I'm going to engage you guys to help me write it. So I'm sort of getting prepared to build that book and get it out to the people who can use it. But that book too is built on the fundamental premise that high velocity salespeople, the ones that really do generate maximum results in minimum time, they exercise just a handful of key disciplines that really do give them that slight extra edge. And I'll share those disciplines, and if you feel like we have time, we can dive into them or we can cut another time. But those 5 disciplines are structure, personal accountability, empathy, education, and direction. And so with that as the framework, I'm learning that I can take that framework and the habits underneath those disciplines and utilize that knowledge and something we call the High Velocity Sales Simulator to help my Business Radio X studio partners and to help their clients do even more and better with the work that they're doing with us. So CPA in Sandy Springs, Georgia, has a show out of that studio. We can help them reverse engineer that show so that it does all the things I described earlier. But if I can also equip that CPA with high velocity selling habits and a safe environment to practice those habits and receive expert advice and feedback, then I feel like I really am serving, and we're learning from experience. We can generate, maybe it's hyperbole, but I'm going to use the word anyway, Adam, exponential results.
No, for sure, 100%. So my background, financial advisor. So I didn't grow up or start in media, and all I did was take. The only reason I maybe have had some little bit of success in media is just because I took them same habits I had back then, and I did the same thing here. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, it still works. So to me, it's not the business. It doesn't matter what business you're in. It's the habits to get the results that you want. So I want to go a little bit further down that vein of thought of like what these types of habits look like? And I know they're going to be different for some people, different for some industries. So, for example, right now we do based off of, content we put out, other things. When I was a financial advisor for, in financial services, almost 14 years, I've been doing this now going on 4. But when I did that, it was how many new contacts I had, how many new people I was meeting. Like, I had to track that because that was what's going to give me the end result I wanted. So, and that was my habit. That's what I had to focus on. So I'd like you to go further down that line of what some of these habits might look like to get the juices flowing for our audience right now.
Absolutely. So let's do that. Let's go very granular. Let's go to the other end of the continuum, and then we can crawl back up the ladder if it makes sense in the time that we have. Interesting you should mention tracking those ratios. That is absolutely a high-velocity selling habit. And I think sometimes salespeople who have not had the benefit maybe of exposure to some of the selling mechanics and disciplines and habits that it sounds like you have, sometimes they can be just overwhelmed with the whole set of responsibilities surrounding this role of salesperson. And so that maybe they get a little too invested in getting it just right and authoring the perfect communication piece and what they're going to say and what they're not going to say. Look, what you need to do is throw your hat over the fence, get off the go, take some action, then get the data in, right, and make your adjustments. And I love what you said. Time and time again, we have absolutely documented that high-velocity salespeople track their results, and they track all the ratios. Again, like in our business, we have our clients track how many people did I invite, how many of those people agreed on the show, how many of those people came on the show, how many of those I decide I might want to work with, back to our CPA, might want to be their CPA. How many of those people did I tell that? How many of those people said, yes, I'll meet with you about it, and just on and on and on. Those ratios are so critical. Some others that are just, every time, they're just never not there. Scheduled calls versus cold calls. Man, people that work like this and are in a different income bracket and are approaching serving their market different. They don't do cold calling. They work only on scheduled calls. This one is not as prevalent as I wish it were, but I'll tell you this: the people who follow my advice and are willing to do it, it's really helped them a lot. High velocity salespeople don't write proposals. They share recommendation summaries, and I know that can sound a little bit like semantics. And for those people who are nervous about trying that idea, if you want to, just take the semantic step for right now. I can build an entire business case for why you don't want to write proposals. It's a positioning nightmare. There's a lot of reasons not to write a proposal. But if in listening to this brief audio, if you're sort of bristling with the idea, just try this form. Try this on your next 3 deals. Write up your proposal the way you always have, and just don't call it a proposal. Put recommendation summary at the top of it. That, look, if you're the expert, you should not be putting forth for consideration your recommendation. That's what proposal literally means, putting forth for another's consideration. Either you're the expert or you're not. And if you're the expert, you should be capturing enough data to make a recommendation, and then you should make that recommendation to this prospective client. And again, if you want to take just a little baby step in that direction, just try that on your next 3 deals. Just whatever you do, don't call it a proposal. Just call it a recommendation summary. And then I guess another one, we see a lot of people in the professional services arena, their sales process involves a sales presentation, Adam. And in our experience, people who produce better results in less time consistently, their whole approach to crafting the solution is one that is co-authored with the prospective client, certainly guided with expertise and insight, but it's a co-authored, co-created solution as opposed to sit down, shut up, give you milk money, and let me teach you how I'm going to help you. Another thing that most high-velocity salespeople don't do, and I'm going to catch some flack about this from some people in the training world, there's tremendous value in having some insight and learning about a person's communication or behavioral style. Where people really screw that up in the sales arena is making the huge leap that once you have that understanding, you try to match their communication style. High-velocity salespeople don't do that. We can talk about that another time if you want. And then the last thing I'll mention, just for the benefit of today's conversation, high velocity salespeople never duck the money question. And then all of these things, we teach some strategies, and then we have the high velocity sales simulator where they can practice those in a safe environment. And then I'll give you one overarching, here's the short version of the Stone high velocity sales course. If you do these two things, the rest of it will fall into place, and you'll come up with your own habits. Tell the truth and get the truth. High velocity salespeople in every professional exchange about providing their products and services in exchange for money, in every one of those, what they become exceedingly good at, Adam, is telling truth and getting the truth. So there you have it, my entire sales course.
Man, I love it, Stone. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to listen to this one again because you dropped some jewels. And it's funny because as I was taking notes and you're talking, I'm like, man, I love it because some of the things I was just thinking about, and I'm like, wow, 2,851. Do you know what that is, Stone?
No.
That's your interview number, and I have 97,149 left to do, and that's my personal goal over 20 years, and I'm 2.5 years in. So throwing that out there to you, I'm like, you got to measure those goals. If you want to do something, you got to know what you want to do. You have to plan that out. You got to. So when people say track numbers, I'm like, you're 2,851. I mean, I have all my interviews, by the way, Stone. So I don't want to but I'm just saying, and I have 97,149 left to go in this journey of podcasting and interviewing people. So I'm like, and that was a plan, that was made 2.5 years ago. And I'm like, and so when you think about all the things you said, I'm just smiling ear to ear over here because I'm like, man, Stone, you just did a master class in like 20 minutes. I'm like, you're too much for me, man. This is a great interview. So that being said, we're about out of time on this one. I'm sure I'm going to be having you back on, though, because this was awesome. So that being said, if somebody is listening to this, Stone, and they do want to connect and learn more about what you're doing with you and your team, and maybe get them a show if they're the right type of individual that's going to make sense, what's the best way for people to connect and to reach out?
So the two best ways, one is just to set up a brief phone conversation with me, and we'll just talk some ideas through. And the short URL to get to that booking calendar is simply bookstonephone.com, bookstonephone.com. And then I do want your listeners to have my email address, and it is Stone, STONE, @businessradiox.com.
Fantastic. Well, Stone, really appreciate you coming on the show today and share more about your background and your passion for what you're doing over at Business Radio X. You're helping a lot of people out there get their message heard, and which is definitely part of what we're all about over at Mission Matters. So great stuff there. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, leave a review on the Mission over on the Apple iTunes store. And if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, Mission Matters Business, give us some comments there and there. I'd love to connect with you and keep the conversation going over in our YouTube community. And Stone, thanks again for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely my pleasure, man. Thank you, Adam.